A few weeks passed, and while I was still swallowing the emptiness, the first cracks started showing in her perfect new facade. First came the silence on social media. The daily happiness posts vanished overnight. Then the whispers from our friends. I ran into her last week at the mall, bro. She looked stressed, deep dark circles, barely smiled, Maria told me over coffee at the corner padaria. The real confirmation came from her, out of nowhere. One night my phone buzzed. "Hi, Rafa. I hope you're doing okay." I stared at the screen for what felt like forever, finger trembling. I replied dryly, "I'm fine. Hope you are too." What followed was a slow, painful collapse. She didn't admit right away that the dream had turned into a nightmare, but the hints were crystal clear. She complained about fights over tight money, about him coming home late without warning, about stupid little arguments that exploded into screaming matches. "He's not as patient as I thought," she wrote in a message at 2 a.m. "We fight about everything. I guess I never saw it before." Every message was a bitter victory for me and a fresh wound at the same time. Part of me wanted to reply, "I told you so," but the other part just felt the deep, heavy sadness. She had thrown away our real life, the daily rice and beans, the laughs on the sofa, the promises of a future, for an illusion that was now crumbling. The messages turned into phone calls. Her voice, once so full of certainty, now trembled, almost broke. "Things are so much harder than I imagined, Rafa." She told me Thiago was controlling. He dictated where she could go, who she could talk to, even what she could post. The guy who was intense passion had turned jealous, critical, sometimes ice cold. "I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time," she admitted, crying on one call. The final straw came on a rainy night. She called at almost 1 a.m, voice frantic, sobbing. "He locked me out of the house. We had a huge fight. He threw my clothes out in the rain. I have nowhere to go, Rafa. Please." My blood ran cold. Part of me wanted to hang up and say this isn't my problem anymore, but I couldn't. 2 days later, I heard desperate knocking on the apartment door. It was almost midnight. I opened it, and there she was, Camila, with a small suitcase in her hand, makeup all smeared by rain and tears, hair wet and messy, eyes swollen. "Can I come in, just for a little while?" she asked, her voice barely there. I stepped aside without saying a word. She walked in, dropped the suitcase on the wet floor, and stood in the middle of the living room like she no longer knew where to step. She sat on the sofa with her shoulders slumped, as if carrying the weight of the world. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she finally said, voice cracking. "I thought I was chasing true happiness, but I just destroyed the only real happiness I ever had in my life." The words hung in the air, mixed with the sound of rain beating against the window. I just stood there looking at her, the same woman I had loved with everything I had, now a thin, broken, remorseful shadow. "What do you want from me now, Camila?" I asked, keeping my voice steady but not cruel. I needed clarity. I wasn't letting her back into my life without her explaining every single detail. "I don't know. I just needed to see you, to apologize from the bottom of my heart, to say I regret everything I did to us." She told me everything, the fights that started out of nowhere, the psychological manipulation that made her question her own sanity, the control that was suffocating her. "The dream is gone, Rafa. I feel so ashamed." I listened to it all in silence. It was surreal. This was the same Camila who had walked out of our home with her head held high, convinced she had found something better. Now here she was, begging for a safe harbor. "I don't expect you to take me back. I just didn't know where else to run." I took a deep breath, chest tight. "I spent months rebuilding myself, Camila. It wasn't just you leaving. You destroyed everything I thought we knew about us, about myself. I questioned my worth every single day. And now you're here asking for what? That I forget everything like none of it happened?" She cried harder, thick tears rolling down.
I know I don't deserve any forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I messed up badly. Now I see clearly everything I gave up. Our daily routine, our inside jokes, the way you could make me laugh even on the worst days. I traded something real for a fantasy that fell apart." We sat there talking until the sun started to lighten the Sao Paulo sky. We talked about the wounds that still bled, the good moments that would never fade, the lessons life taught us in the harshest way possible. When she left in the morning, asking for one last hug that I gave without strength, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't happiness, it wasn't revenge, it was real closure, mature closure, the kind that doesn't tie everything up with a pretty bow, but makes one thing crystal clear. Our story had reached its end. As I closed the door, a strange mix washed over me. Deep relief, a sweet sadness for the beautiful years we had, and for the first time in a long time, a light freedom. I had learned to live without her. I started running in Parque Ibirapuera every late afternoon, playing the guitar that had been gathering dust for years, going out with the guys for a cold chop without constantly checking my phone. I learned that true love isn't made of fireworks and perfect Instagram dreams. It's made of ordinary days, well-seasoned rice and beans, shared traffic jams, imperfections we choose to embrace every single day. Never trade what is solid, what is real, for a shiny illusion that life can't sustain, because the dream can turn into a nightmare overnight. And when that happens, you discover that the firm ground you once had was the real treasure all along. If you made it all the way here, my brother, my sister, how about subscribing to the channel? It helps us a ton to keep bringing raw, real stories full of lessons like this one. I picked 2 more videos for you, one on how to heal after a breakup and another on learning to love yourself again. Click them right now. They'll touch your heart too. I'll see you in the next story, okay? Take good care of your heart because it's the most precious thing you have. A big hug from Sao Paulo with a lot of love. See you soon.
Just picture this. You drag yourself home after another brutal day stuck in Sao Paulo's hellish traffic, kick off your shoes, crack open an ice-cold beer, and sit down to dinner with the woman you've loved for 6 years. Everything feels normal. The smell of perfectly fluffy rice mixed with tropiro beans, that well-done onion steak, and the crunchy farofa only she knew how to make. Camila was right there across the table in our small but love-filled apartment in Piñeros. But her eyes, man, those eyes were different. Distant, like her mind was already 1,000 miles away. Maybe somewhere in those glowing high-rises along marginal Piñeros that we could see from the window. Me, Rafael, 34 years old, an engineer always racing deadlines on Avenida Paulista, asked in my usual light tone, "Everything okay, babe? Was your boss on your back again, or was it the packed metro that got you stressed?" Instead of answering with a smile or the usual complaint about her day, she stopped with the fork halfway to her mouth, looked me straight in the eyes with an intensity that sent ice down my spine, and said very quietly, "We need to talk, Rafa." I remember every single detail like it was shot in slow motion, her hands trembling slightly as she twisted the hem of my old Corinthian shirt, the one I gave her for our anniversary. The silence that dropped over the room, broken only by a distant siren on the street and the hum of our ancient air conditioner. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I already sensed something bad was coming, but nothing in this world could have prepared me for the earthquake she was about to drop. "I met someone," she started. The words came out sharp as a razor. "He's the man of my dreams, and I'm moving in with him." For the first split second, I actually laughed. A nervous laugh, the kind you give when you think the person must be joking. "Stop it, Camila. You're messing with me, right? After 6 years?" But her face didn't change. Not a blink, not a smile. She was dead serious, mortally serious. I felt an avalanche of emotions slam into me all at once. burning disbelief, a spinning confusion, rage rising in my chest, and a pain so deep it felt like someone had reached inside me and squeezed my heart. My mind was spinning desperately. What the hell are you saying? Who is this guy? And us? What happens to everything we built together? The questions came tumbling out, one after another, but she already had every answer ready. It sounded rehearsed. She told me they met at a mutual friend's birthday party in Villa Maddalena at a little bar packed with people dancing pagode. The connection was instant, she said, like she'd been struck by lightning, that she'd been holding back with me for years, waiting for me to change, to be more romantic, more present. But this Tiago, according to her, made her feel alive, desired, special in a way I had never managed. Every word was a deeper stab. We'd been married for 6 years. We met at a June festival in Atibaia, danced quadrilla together, ate canjica and paçoca until sunrise. I thought we were happy. Sure, Sao Paulo takes its toll, work, bills, traffic on 23 de Mayo, but we had our sacred little rituals, Sunday barbecue on the terrace, weekend trips to Ilhabela whenever we could, and those Netflix nights with homemade brigadeiro. I never imagined she was this unhappy. She kept going, way too calm. She'd been planning it for weeks, had already separated her clothes, documents, even her favorite perfume was already packed. She was moving out that Saturday. Her calmness hurt the most. It felt like emotionally she had already left a long time ago, and I was just an annoying detail standing in the way of her happily ever after. I sat there, stunned, staring at my cold plate, trying to understand how everything had collapsed without me seeing a single warning sign. And then came the final blow, the one that still echoes forever. You'll always be a great guy, Rafa, but he's the one I've been waiting for my whole life. I couldn't even open my mouth. My throat locked up. My chest felt like a truck was parked on it. She stood up, hesitated for 1 second looking at me, then walked out of the room. The sound of her footsteps down the hallway echoed like the last nail in the coffin of our marriage. That night, I didn't close my eyes one single time. I stayed sprawled on the living room sofa, TV on mute, with a Palmeiras game playing that I didn't even register, mentally replaying every single word she said. How could she betray me like this? How could she casually tear down 6 years of life we built with so much sweat and effort? The trips to Guarujá Beach, Christmases at my parents' house in Campinas, the stupid little fights over whose turn it was to wash the dishes, everything turned to dust. But the question that ate me alive wasn't why him. It was how the hell did I miss every sign? Where did I fuck up so badly? The days that followed turned into a black and white movie. She started packing almost immediately, watching her fold her blouses with that methodical care, carefully putting away our wedding photo albums from the simple little church in Atibaia, separating the gifts we got at our housewarming party. Every single item leaving the apartment felt like another piece of my chest being ripped out. I just stood there, frozen in the bedroom doorway, unable to help, unable to stop her. I kept remembering us assembling that wardrobe together, laughing because the IKEA instructions were all in Swedish and we just made up our own ridiculous translations. Now the same wardrobe was half empty. She wasn't openly cruel. She tried to stay civilized, offering explanations I didn't want to hear. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. You deserve someone who truly wants you. Words that hurt worse than a slap across the face. You'll move on too, she said once while sealing a box. I didn't answer. What was there left to say? Her actions had already screamed everything. When she finally walked out, hauling the last suitcases into an Uber headed to Tiago's place in the Jardines, the apartment felt completely wrong. It wasn't just the physical emptiness, the closet missing her colorful clothes, the bathroom without her creams and makeup scattered everywhere, the kitchen without the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. It was the silence. a heavy, suffocating silence that pressed down on my chest every second. Every creak of the wooden floor, every hum of the refrigerator, every car horn down on the street seemed to shout her absence. The nights were pure hell. Lying in our queen-sized bed that now felt way too big, I stared at the cracked ceiling, replaying our whole story on loop. Our first kiss at the Outlook Point in Ibercata, the marriage proposal at the top of Sugarloaf Mountain during that surprise trip to Rio, all the promises we made about growing old together. Meanwhile, she seemed to be living her dream on social media. I couldn't stop myself from looking, even though it was pure masochism. Smiling photos with Tiago at fancy restaurants in the Jardines, selfies hugging on the cable car in Campos del Jordán, captions like, "Finally found the one who truly completes me." It felt like she wanted me to see every single detail, to know exactly how much better her life was without me. I tried blocking her, but our mutual friends, Zhao from college, Maria from the office, made it impossible to escape. "She's moving way too fast, bro," Zhao told me over a beer at a Boteco on Oscar Freire. "You deserve so much better than this." The words rang as hollow as an echo. Work became my only refuge. I took project after project, staying at the office on Paulista until 10 p.m., just so I didn't have to come home to the silence of that apartment. But even there, her shadow followed me. In the elevator, during a quick lunch at the pay-by-the-weight spot, in boring meetings, my mind kept drifting back to her. For 6 years, I had built my entire life around Camila. She wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend, my partner in every crazy idea, my whole future. Now it was just me, Rafael, alone in an apartment in Piñeros, trying to remember who the hell I was without the us.